Live now on audio. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adbukta.
This is Merps. Lots of stuff has happened since we convened last time for the Lightforge. Very busy week. Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, God, so many things have happened.
I know,
Why
I
don't you
know.
just start running us down on the news? It just seemed like we did the Lightforge, and then every day, like, one or two things impacting the arena happened until
It
like Thursday,
really is.
Friday.
Let's get something very independent out of the way, which is the April leaderboards. April leaderboards came out. Congrats to the people that made it to the very top. Congrats to number one, who is Kaboomba with 8.1 average wins, very low for the top. April was a month of 30 full runs. We haven't had that for about 2 months because of the events. Number two, very familiar face, Dreads at 7.8.
Hey.
I mean, at this point, Dreads has been on every single leaderboard, right?
Yes.
And he has been, the crushing number one, beating my record. No bad feelings. And he has placed within the top 10, top 20, countless number of times.
Yeah.
Very, very impressive.
Yeah,
And just going down.
I was doing a co-op with him. I think like last week, and he carried me to some good results. And
Of course, yes.
and some of that'll be on YouTube next week. Look for the priest run.
Yeah. So I think, all right, I'll go down a few more. Number three is Morphling, and then we have Celeritas, Near, Glebe, Hamura, Bouncy Bear, Franks, and Happy313. Congrats to everyone in the top 10. We also have some very familiar faces. You see Hafu in here, right? You see Tex, like a lot of people from the Arena HS subreddit. Sorry, I can't give shout outs to everyone, but one thing to note is that the averages this month were fairly low, like very low, especially not only at the top end, but at the bottom end. So number 150, the average was 6.33.
Damn,
I don't think we've seen one. Yeah.
Like even I could make it at that.
I don't know about that.
No, and I mean I talked about this before when it comes to, because April was the launch of Witchwood, right? Like almost all of the results are going to be from the Witchwood era, which one was very unstable, and two was dominated by Paladin and Rogue, just from start to finish. It was dominated by those classes, and you can only hire those classes a certain number of times. Other classes are capped. I think I mentioned this like on, if not the prior Lightforge, the one before that. Like personally, my Rogue / Paladin win rate is above 9, and no other class is above 6.5.
Yeah.
Like that's such a huge difference, and that will limit your overall win rate because you just can't get Paladin and Rogues that often when you're going for the leaderboard. Or I mean, you can, but you have to be really lucky. On the other hand, once you get to like 8, 9, 10 wins, you're still gonna only see like Paladins and Rogues, right? And they're gonna be at a very significant advantage on you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw a very sad Paladin when I was at my 11th win. During my 12-win Warlock this week, and then after
you can't
that,
count this week. They just fixed class balance.
Yeah, no, but
It's a different
I
meta
will,
now.
right. No, I mean, I was gonna say, like, I think a lot of people are reporting seeing very high win Warlocks and very, very high win Druids, because that seems to be pretty good now.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, Druids hit or miss with Ultimate Infestation, right? And these days they're hitting more than missing.
Yeah, definitely. So, anyways, congrats to everyone who made the leaderboard. Once again, I only mentioned NA, but I'm not sure if EU is out yet. Congrats to them, and I'm very interested in seeing in the main leaderboards what happens and how it'll impact the averages.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be interesting, certainly. And if you guys don't know, the hotfix we were talking about, I guess the patch was the class balance patch, and we'll get into that later. And we're gonna do a hunter run after this for the arena coop. So we'll also go back to our normal class talk series and really focus in on the hunter and what to do in this kind of meta. But all of that is happening afterwards. For now, we're going to roll on more with more like arena news, right? So this is you can think of this episode of Lightforge as in two halves. The first half is stuff that's going on in the arena news world, and the second half is, you know, what happened after this patch, which balanced all the classes.
Yep. Okay. So, how about we just start off with kind of like the day after the Lightforge? Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right. We'll go chronologically. So we did the Lightforge on Sunday. You know, we always record on Sunday, and we talked a little bit about Crip's like video, right? And then immediately after, or the day after, Crip came out with a video that essentially said, "Hey, here is how arena drafting actually works. I got it wrong, right? Or I misunderstood." And essentially, you know, he goes on to basically say, here's how it works. Taro created this list, and it's the bucket system. But his important message is like, wait, like let's hold up a second. I got it wrong, but I play arena 3 hours a day, and I go on Reddit 2 hours a day, and I still didn't know, right? And even right now, he's like, you know, he just sort of got the gist of it, right? He's not like Taro, who like just knows everything.
No, I mean, even when you go through his second video, he's still getting like nuances and small parts like incorrect. Even though he's getting the big picture right now. We talked about this in the last Lightforge. Like, his video's main idea is not like, this is how drafting works and it sucks. This is basically how drafting works, and it's getting too close to constructed, and things are too powerful, and it's not the arena that people go on for arena for. And none of that has changed, even after this class balance patch, right? Like,
no,
the balance is much better now than before, which was my main complaint. But it is true, we're still much more closer to constructed than we were before 10.4. You do see many more constructed cards, and the power level is up, and they actually made it a point where they knocked it down at one point, and they were like, we're not that comfortable with that, and they pulled it back up. So that's still Crip's like main complaint, I think. I don't think his core thesis has changed.
Not at all.
It's more the technical aspects that he didn't understand. He understands more of now. But you know, if you go through that video as someone who like lives on Arena HS and knows and reads everything, you'll see little things he's getting wrong about how the drafting still works.
Right. So, anyways, he comes out with that video on Monday. On Tuesday, we are hit with an update, right? And essentially, you know, we get a patch, and for constructed, they did stuff with like Shutterwalk, right? And all of the battle cries and animations, nothing that we'll ever encounter. But for arena, they gave this sort of bullet point within the patch, and it says exactly, updated the appearance rate of cards to improve class balance by win percentage. For example, Paladin had a higher than average win rate and should now be closer to average. And that's it. So it basically says,
I mean, it told us, like, everybody's like, oh, that's so vague. I'm like, what do you want to know, right? Like, they told you that we're balancing the classes. We know they do it through micro adjusts. Like, yeah, if you've never like paid attention to arena patch notes before, you may not have any idea what's going on. But if you are actually like a well-informed arena player, you know what happened. They micro-adjusted based on class balance, and then, as predicted, Paladin win rates went down, Rogue's win rate went down, Hunter win rates went up. Like, right? Like, this was, I don't know.
Right.
When I saw it, like, I streamed, like, the day this came out, and I was, like, very excited to see what the changes were, and the changes were very muted. Like, I think Blizzard is doing this in a very, like, they've done this many times before, first of all, so they kind of knew how these things work, but they know that they just have to change very little bits in the arena, and it will actually move a class's win rate significantly up or significantly down by the few percentage points that was causing like the main problem. So if you're just playing arena, you don't even feel it right now necessarily, right? That they've done anything special with the
Well, I will say people on Arena HS were reporting like very noticeable changes in Paladin, as in people were getting the top buckets or just, you know, the very good buckets like a lot less often.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And then someone else posted something that had 8 steeds, you know, like you're gonna see both.
Well, I mean, that one was just sort of, like on the main subreddit, kind of joking around, and then they had like a pretty long discussion in Arena HS about it. But once again, like I haven't drafted it. I don't have the
Yeah, I mean, just
exactly
go
the
on HS
numbers.
Replay and look at
Yeah.
Steed's like offering rates or like Steed's taking rates.
Hmm.
It's gone down by a very tiny percentage.
Mm.
A very, very, very tiny percentage. We're talking like definitely less than 10%, probably less than 5%.
Yeah.
Of its old like rates when you compare it with how frequently paladins are seen. One thing that's contributing to that is that paladins are seen less frequently now than they used to be, because the idea that you have to pick paladin to win is broken a little bit, so the usage rates are down. And arena HS replay stats are, they're horrible when it comes to what they present us to be able to do anything with. They have the stats, they just don't present it in a way for us to do the analysis the way like an arena player would normally want to.
Yeah.
Like they don't give offering rates. They may not have offering rates, but still, right? Like they don't like divide it by the amount of paladins you see. Like that's a pretty basic like thing to do. But anyway,
Right.
the point being, even right now, even if you look at the top played cards in the arena, Steed's no longer in the top 5. It's still in the top 12.
Yep. So
And that should
sort
tell
of
you all you need to know about
yeah.
like how much they nerf Paladin.
Small changes and very much within the realm of the micro adjust
Mm-hmm.
universe that we're used to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So for the people that hate micro adjust, obviously you continue to hate it. The people like, but this is nothing new. This is them using the tools that they already have, whether you like them or not, whether or not you agree with the philosophy, but using the tools that they already have
And it's
to
working
adjust.
when it comes to like actually lowering Paladin's win rate. These like this
Right,
tiny
right.
like adjust. Like people can exaggerate how much they like feel it or don't feel it, but the numbers don't lie. It definitely was noticeable statistically. It went down, but it went
Yeah,
down by a very small percentage.
that
And
was a very Rasheed Wallace like, ball don't lie kind of
yeah,
statement,
yeah, but like you get there, and the Paladins' win rates, they went down. They were 55%. They're now 52%, and they've been going down. And once all the old decks stop getting played, they may end up at like 51.5% or something like that, right? Like still a good class, still the best class in the meta as of now. But it was it's this is what we've been waiting for, right? This is why we were sitting here, and I made a tweet about it, like when all the stuff was working out. I'm like, I don't really care about the other stuff as much. Like they can up the power level, like the power level right now of decks. Crypt doesn't like it. I don't like it, but it's not like unplayable right now, right? Like there was a time in which it was unplayably everybody had 5 steeds. Like we're at the point right now where it's not unplayable. It's just more powerful than most good players would like. But
right.
we're within the realm, I think, of Blizzard wants to make things one way, like we don't like it, but it's not like totally destroying the game, at least in my opinion.
Right.
Um,
Steed is less so the boogeyman. You hear a little bit more complaints about UI
yeah,
now,
yeah,
right?
right,
Yep.
exactly. When there's multiple boogeymen and the decks are overall power level not like insanely high, then you're just in kind of a different meta, a different vision that Blizzard has. So agree or disagree with that. The one thing that was objectively horrible was that Paladin maintained a win rate of 55% for 2 months when you had micro adjust, and they finally like pulled the micro adjust lever. So at least they did
Right.
that. They should be doing that way more frequently, especially whenever metas change. When like whether they introduce 10.4 drafting system or when they introduce a new expansion or a rotation. Like these levers should be pulled like a few days after, not a few weeks. This isn't even a few. Yeah, I guess it's like 6 weeks after.
That's the thing, right? About something like micro adjust. It's like the reason you have micro adjust is because of the response time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we've talked about this before. It's like it seems as though they implemented the system, but throughout the inception of the system, they really haven't used one of its like greatest benefits,
Yeah.
which is real time slash very fast reacting fixes.
I remember we had a Lightforge in like October when I don't know who, someone on the Blizzard team, could be XR or maybe someone else, said, yeah, we haven't micro adjusted since like July, like the middle of July, and we were like,
Right, yeah.
what? Why have you not done that? It doesn't matter how much people disagree with it. Once you've committed down this path, you at least want to get the benefits of it. You've already like, basically, if they stop micro adjusting, unless they announce that they've stopped micro adjusting, and then they have an actual set offering rate that we know of, they've already taken all the bad parts of micro adjusting to do class balance, and we are already always feeling all the negative parts, meaning we don't really know the exact offering rates of any particular card or bucket or whatever. The negatives are always there, whether you micro adjust it once every like 2 months or once every day. So if the penalty's already there, if the bad stuff is already there, why are you not trying to reap the benefits, which is just a more balanced game class-wise, which is why you're doing this in the first place.
Yeah. Anyways, we actually learned a little bit about Blizzard and microadjust the day after that, on Wednesday. So the patch came out on Tuesday. We got a little bit more information because Peter Whalen went on The Angry Chicken, and Dills, my man, thank you for bringing up the arena.
Dills always got the arenas back.
Appreciate it, Dills.
The Angry Chicken podcast, by the way, if you guys are podcast listeners, you would definitely know about it. But if you're just randomly watching this, they are the premier podcast for all things Hearthstone. Not a lot of discussion about arena on there, but Dills has got our backs for a long time when it comes to making sure the arena community has somewhat of a voice on that podcast, and whenever they get a developer on board to like talk about stuff.
All right, so Dills asked Peter Whalen about the arena, and he really just asked about the communication issue, right? And he's like, well, look, there's all these changes, but people want to know exactly what it is.
And what the offering rates are, what the changes
and what the offering rates are. And then Peter Whalen kind of gave a non-answer for a while. Yeah, I mean... but when he did sort of address the question, it came down to two things, sort of complexity and burden on the players, right? And he's like, and at the end of the day, we just want you guys to have fun. So also, in addition to that, he was saying, we have this one guy who's doing this part-time, blah, blah. And I think a lot of people were up in arms about that. I would say
let's break this down into three parts, right? All right. One is this thing's really, really complicated, so we don't know the best way to present it. That's fair. That's why they haven't presented it for a very long time, and that's why no one's like actually banging down their door to get an answer, because I think we all know that it's hard. And so we're going to keep being like, hey, by the way, have you done this yet? But we're not going to be like, why wasn't this done like 2 months ago? Because it is hard. How do you present this? Like, presenting the buckets probably isn't that hard, but presenting because like I said, but we said before in previous Lightforge, right? Like, just because 2 cards are the same category in the same bucket does not mean they're offered at the same rate. Like, for Blizzard to present that data, that's a nightmare. And, that's their own choice of that they're even doing that, which I'm not even sure is a good idea. But regardless, if they're going down that road, presentation is an issue, communication is an issue. There's the second part of that, which is is it worth it to even present it because it will confuse people, which, like, it's just, they're so out of touch with that stuff, which makes sense because they don't have any, not like professional arena players, but even anybody who really takes arena seriously on their entire team. So they're not going to get that perspective. Like, I'm sure they read what we and other arena fanatics write, and they're like, you guys are like crazy, right? Like, but I mean, most of that communication is for us and for Crip, right? Like, they've gotten to the point where they're alienating Crip arena wise, as in
he was super pissed.
And Crip was
in both of his videos.
Crip was pissed because he's like, I'm a hardcore arena player. You're doing such a horrible job that I don't even know this, right? Like, and Crip is a hardcore arena player. He may not be a pure arena player the way, some of the other streamers you may watch are, but he definitely plays arena, like, probably as much, if not more, than we play, individually at least. And it's impossible to follow. And beyond that, if it's impossible for him, it's very difficult for him to follow, and a player even in his position doesn't get the information to him. But we have the information, or a lot of the information. It's not like this information, these are like truths in the world, right? It's not like because Blizzard doesn't organize them happily and present it to us, people don't have that information. But now special people have that information. The people who are actually psychotic about it, like we are, who like go and beg arena drafts to give us data and pour over it. People like Taro who like organize stuff. People like, I'm forgetting his name, the person who's actually writing the algorithm that's pulling the data to make these buckets. Because Taro did it by hand a little at first, but now he's using an algorithm written by someone. And I forgot the guy's username handle. We should give him a shout out though. Anyway, so the whole like conceit of this is that the information, so long as it is truth, will go out there in some way, shape, or form. And to the extent that it's very difficult to put out there, it resides in the hands of very few people who are that hardcore to figure it out. And it's so complicated right now that, like I said, we have a lot of information that we can't share with you guys specifically because we're where Blizzard is. We're sitting there with a bunch of data. We're sitting there with a bunch of like ways of categorizing things, and we're very good arena players who know how to do this. And we're like, I'm trying to find a way to like show this to the public in a way that's better than just like, here are where the buckets are. And I'm having trouble doing that too. But that doesn't mean the information doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that everyone's just walking around, having fun, playing the arena, and just taking what will come of it. Anybody who's competitive right now is feeling frustrated that they can't apply their skills because they don't have access to the secret information that we have somewhat access to, that Crypt may have somewhat access to, or that it will take them many hours of research. Like, we talked about this way before when it came to the micro adjust, right? Like, if you turn the game into a game where I have to, like, pour over stats for 20 hours for every 1 hour arena I play, I'm still going to play the arena. And I'm going to be better at it than the person who plays the arena for 20 hours and pours over stats for only, like, 1 hour. Because he's hardcore, too, because only hardcore people pour over stats rather than just playing the freaking game. But I'm willing to do 20-to-1 ratio, and he's not willing to do that. And this game becomes very not fun. So by not organizing this data and presenting it to people, Blizzard is making the game very not fun for anybody who's competitive. And for the people who are non-competitive, they don't care. If you put the data out and call it advanced or something, they may look at it and just be like, whatever. Or like, you can even put a disclaimer on it and be like, this is totally not necessary to do really well in the arena. This is for people who are in, like, the top 1 percentile. Until you average more than, like, 6 wins or 7 wins per run, don't even look at this. They can write that out there. And then I don't think that'll be heavily discouraging to casuals.
That's the thing. Like, the only reason... Because, look, you can say it's like, oh, it's complex, it's burdensome. We have to make sure it's like we display it in the right way. The only way that is a huge sort of, like, risk, it's like, is... If you believe as a company, if we present this information and like, if we present this information just as is, right, there is a sizable amount of players that will be angry or very uncomfortable with the fact that this information is out there and they can access it, but by them not wanting to access it / not accessing it, they don't have this sort of advantage. As opposed to, the situation that you stated, right? Like, there's also this group of players like us who know that it's out there. We're going to get it. It's not like if / when. We're going to get it.
It's going to happen. If the truth is out there, we'll find it.
Right. But we are going to spend a ton of effort because you have to reverse engineer, right? You have to reverse engineer all of this stuff in order to get it. And you stated this before, you're like, they don't have anyone who is like hardcore arena on the team, but it's like, do they have anyone who is hardcore gaming? Just period? Because this shouldn't be an arena thing. It's just a hardcore gamer thing, right? It's like, it doesn't matter what it is. People have use this attitude it's every single game.
At the bottom of it, it's like, and Peter Willen also said, right, there's no competitive format of arena or arena-like stuff in the plans, like, right at this moment. Like, they just don't view arena as a terribly competitive thing. They are purposely making this, like, people who they have people there who are ex-competitors, right? They know what competition's like. You're right. Like, they're not, we're not saying Blizzard's a bunch of casuals at Team 5. They have professional players there who very much, know what it's like and know what makes a good competitive game, in ways that maybe we even don't. But they're very much taking the decision and saying arena will not be competitive. We're going to put a leaderboard because there happens to be people who take this very seriously. But we are questioning whether we should support that further because they're kind of doing things that we don't want them to do, right? Like, you kind of get the sense that, I don't know how people keep bringing up the arguments like Blizzard doesn't want anyone to be an infinite arena player because they don't make money. It's like, I don't think so. So few people become infinite arena players, and chances are, if you're getting on your way there, you've spent some money for Blizzard. Infinite arena players sometimes still buy packs and whatever to support Blizzard. Like, it's not like we're ruining the fun for everybody. It's such a small percentage of players.
And look, I don't have all of their numbers, but I think for a lot of games, especially PvP like games, it's helpful for there to be a spearhead for the community,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like the top players, if they really enjoy it, they really enjoy battling each other, and there is a healthy top of the community, it show like other people will follow,
And
right?
they have
Because
like play states to aspire to, or like if I
right,
somehow, even if I'm not trying too hard, if I do see myself getting really good, I know I could put in some extra effort and I could like do something or like whatever, right? Like it's a thing. It was definitely like watching like Trump and Hafu was like that was one of the things that made me want to like start a stream like way back in the day, and like even like get really good at the arena. Well, one of the drivers was that I wouldn't have to pay money to play this game,
yeah,
clearly. But also that like if I got good enough, and eventually I got to the point where I was like, I'm probably like in the ballpark of these guys, to like do something with it. I don't know. I want to, but the idea is they're focusing away from that from the arena, right? That's pretty clear in the
yeah,
interview, and they're kind of somewhat consistent with that. I mean, not like fully consistent. I'm sure they, not just in terms of lip service, but they do have a leaderboard. They're even standardizing the leaderboard right now, right? Like, you were talking about the leaderboard. It's 30 runs now, and they've released a statement that says every month now is going to be 30 runs. We're not going to do this like thing where some are lower, some are more. And you notice that we haven't been talking a lot about the leaderboards that aren't 30 runs because not that we feel like they're not legitimate or anything, but it's so much more variance, and people have run statistical models on it, on Arena HS. I think Dr. Stein ran a model to show that. Oh, and by the way, the person I want to give a shout out to, and Taro's in our chat right now. It's Jarkin Hawk is the person who's writing the data pulling and organizing software,
yeah.
to get the buckets. So big shout out to that, to Jarkin Hawk. Anyway, I really want to get off of this kind of topic, and into what's actually going on in the arena, because although this is news in terms of information that we're hearing from an interview, it's not something that's going to affect anybody for the near future. I think Blizzard is going in a direction. I think they've lost a lot of the hardcore community, not just Crip, but even you look at like the Hearthstone subreddit, not the Arena HS subreddit, but the Hearthstone subreddit. And the vast majority of the people there who play Arena agree with Crip, like very strongly, that Arena is getting unfun because the cards are getting too powerful. You look at Blizzard's official forums, and that sentiment is right now, I think it's like maybe 60-40 compared to the people who like to see a lot more craziness in the arena. And yeah, people on the Blizzard forums aren't like exactly casuals, but they're about as casual as people get that will actually give Blizzard feedback.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, if Blizzard's going in a direction, there's nothing anyone can really do about it. But I don't know what makes them want to go in that direction besides like they themselves. It seems like everybody has eventually, gotten onto our side and the hardcore players side of this when it comes to power levels, which is what Crip was talking about. And when it comes to information, everyone's always been on our side, whether they want to see the information, actually dig into it or not. It's just something you should tell the players the rules of the game, right? That's what we keep coming back to. Nobody will disagree with that except Blizzard sometimes, when they're like, sometimes rules are too complicated and then it's better to not tell anybody.
Right.
It's just, I don't think anyone's on board with that, Blizzard. Like anybody.
No.
Not even the most casual players.
And it's also different if they don't tell us and there's no way for anyone to find out, right?
Okay,
then
that's different.
Right, and then that would just be like dice rolls, essentially. It's like you never know, and then it's just like rolling a mad bomber. It's like, okay then, which is okay.
But you still know the rules and the odds and stuff, and those are all facts, and you can figure them out.
Right.
Now, once you can figure them out, it's over for Blizzard's like master plan, if that's what it is. And they're kind of like half-assing it that way, right? Because they're also, their first point is, it's very difficult to like give you all the information. We really try. And their second point is, you don't really want the information anyway. It's like, they're just talking right now, right? Like, I don't know what they're actually thinking. But the second point doesn't make any sense. is what I'm trying to get at. Okay. Do you want to talk more
Anyways,
about that, or do you want to talk about the one guy at Blizzard who apparently does arena bucketing and micro adjusts?
well, I will just say that, for now we have seen, or did you want to talk about like the classes and how they fit after that?
I want to talk about like actual how to play the arena after that.
Okay,
But
okay.
like, so
Then,
get
then let's
everything
talk
out
about the
before
dude.
this. Yeah,
Let's talk about the dude.
let's talk
So,
about the
anyways,
dude. We don't know his name, right? We
no,
don't know his name.
no,
He's the dude,
yeah.
and
Um,
and it's half of
and
his job, or like a part of his
part.
job, a
It's
part
like
of
a
his job
part. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what
to
they use.
to put all the arena cards in buckets and to micro adjust them and to kind of make sure the arena is running along relatively smoothly. And
Right.
so, given that, I think people are like, oh, I guess that's why things are so slow. Oh, like it's actually probably not that bad. Like that guy's probably not doing a very bad job. We thought there was like at least a couple guys doing this full time, but it turns out to just be a guy some of the time. Like it's like 18 jobs and
Yeah.
like 4 of them have to do with the arena, and he's like
Right.
scrambling with it during his workday trying to get this done.
It's like one guy who has like two jobs. He splits his time. It's like during half the day he's like a gardener, and during the other half he does the national budget.
And meanwhile, we're like picking over every line of the national budget. We're like
I
expert
know.
accountants, and we're like, oh, why are you doing this way? This is horrible. What are they possibly thinking?
Anyways, so look, a lot of people criticize the fact that Peter Whalen identified there was one person working on this, and then they were just like, well, this one person is like, what are you doing, right? So, anyways, I know you had some
Okay.
thoughts on
All,
this.
all memes aside, though, like
Yeah,
really
yeah,
for
yeah.
the upkeep of Arena on like a day to day, week to week, whatever basis, I know people think it's like a super complicated job or someone has to keep an eye on it at like all times, but like if Blizzard hired me, for example, to do this, and again, I don't have the statistical background and whatever they're running with the micro adjust, but like even if I did, I kind of understand some of the complexity in that. It would not take my full day to do the arena by far. Like you don't even need one. Basically, like people are like, oh, you need a couple guys full time on arena, at least one person. I don't think you do. As someone who like full like almost full time like digs into this enough that it could be my second job if I looked at it that way, right? Like I know that you can get very far and get a good amount of stuff where it
You would still
really
have time for gardening.
I would. And so, like, if you're Blizzard and you're trying to allocate resources, yeah, it'd be nice to have one guy who's just concerned with arena problems, and then they could do better, like, outreach and better, like, communication and a lot of the stuff that we actually want them to do. But in terms of the core job of balancing the arena, you don't need more than one person. You just need one person part time. That's fine. They also have a whole balance team. I'm sure they run some of the stuff by the balance team. It's not just one guy making the final decisions on everything, left to himself. But the, the one guy does have to like rebalance the arena and pull that lever more frequently.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's less so about one person doing it and more so the decisions that this one person and whoever is involved in this process
And,
like
and
are making.
whoever's
Right.
overseeing this one person, because I'm sure this
Right.
is not like the top person in Blizzard. I'm sure he has a manager. This is Blizzard. It's a corporation. The manager's got to get on this person to be like, hey, have you pulled the rebalancing lever? If not, why? And like really be on this person because this person has a pretty large responsibility for like only part of his job. So it's one thing where it's like, how much time does this actually take? And it's not that much. So it's probably not worth it to put a whole entire person on it. And on the other hand, it's this one person does have a pretty important job when it comes to the game. So especially if they're kind of let do what they're doing, someone has to make them do it more frequently and like
Yeah.
not take excuses for timing of things like this. Like the 2 months to pull the class balance lever that they already had set up. Uh, that's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, that's one guy not doing his job. Not even well or not, just like not doing it, but it's really more management's issue than it is this person. Like this is not something that should have happened.
Yeah, because like we said, we have like they have the system in which the reason they had it was to be able to be nimble, right? To be able like quick on their feet in terms of changes. And we're just not seeing that for one reason or another. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not inside Blizzard, so.
And when you're talking about bucketing and rebucketing, here's a guy looking at stats rebucketing, right? Blizzard seems to have a pretty, like you can, so there's two issues with bucketing. One is initial buckets, which I'm sure it's not one guy doing initial buckets. I'm sure the balance team, like, at least looks at it or something, or one person from the balance team looks at it instead of like one guy whose real like expertise is how, you know, all this coding for micro adjust works. Like, you know, probably has a statistics PhD or like something like hanging in his wall or something. Not I am a limited card player expert.
Yeah.
But when it comes to rebalancing and rebucketing, one, Blizzard hasn't done a terrible job on the rebucketing things. Like, even after the first rebucketing, things are more or less where they're supposed to be. And Blizzard's taken a pretty strict, I think, win rate approach to it. And so there's ways to arbitrage that, but there's no perfect solution to bucketing, right? Because players are at different skill levels. So you're bucketing for someone. And I understand that they're not bucketing for us. We are the very small minority, and we're here picking holes in their bucketing system, and that's fine. Like, so I don't really mind the bucketing, and their speed's pretty good on that one too. So I don't know. Like, oh no, I don't think this guy's doing a terrible job or anything, but I do think someone has to get on his ass about like doing all parts of his job a lot quicker and a lot more frequently. And if they didn't budget his time for that, to maybe, you know, really think about increasing the share of his time that he's spending on Arena.
Yeah. Agreed. So that's kind of where we're at. I think that's all the news from the past week. So we have a patch that came out on Tuesday, and then this interview on Wednesday. And past that, people have just been playing, sort of figuring out these changes. And I think that's a good segue. You know, that sort of brings us to what is the meta now, right? After this patch, we've only had a few days of it, like less than a week. And, you know, we can definitely look at HS replay to see the aftermath and kind of talk about what you guys can expect after the patch.
So one thing that I have a general rule of thumb, which is plus or minus 2% win rate, doesn't really matter that much to you. Like, you got it. Like, other things are going to move it up or down way more than your average win rates being up or down like 1 or 2% from the median. And we're pretty much there for all classes. Like, just looking at HS replay, I don't think it's a tilted meta anymore in terms of like any class can succeed. Yeah, I'm sure some classes are better than other ones. Right now, Priest really looks horrible by the win rates. But, you know, Priest is in a slightly more skillful position now than I think it used to be. And, you know, maybe you can make something of it. Or maybe Priest is just kind of in a worse spot than they used to be. But when it comes to all the classes, like the bad classes are still only slightly worse than the best classes.
Yeah, that's quite true. So
that's
Hunter is not
too.
Yeah, Hunter is not as bad as it used to be. Paladins are not as good as they used to be, and like I said earlier, people are liking Warlock and Druid, right? I certainly felt the power of Warlock in my run on Friday, and yeah, like Druids, I can definitely feel them just getting better. A lot of people are complaining about UI, for example, and also, man, it feels really bad to be Hunter against Druids. I know I'm jinxing, like
they have a Hunter run after this.
I know.
Druids don't exist,
but in all seriousness, like, you don't beat Druids as Hunter. It's like it's you always lose. They have too much
uphill climb though. Like, think about any meta. There's never been a meta in which Hunters were like even within shooting range of being equal to
Druids. Right. No. But like right now, they're like the taunts, the removal, and the armor gain, and just like everything put together, right? Yes, no, I definitely agree. And you have always stated this as well. Like whenever it's a Hunter versus Druid matchup, you're like, oh god, like this is really bad.
It's one of the most unfair matchups in the entire game from Classic.
It's a tilted matchup, but I would say it's about as tilted as it's ever been now.
Yes.
Like if it's not like a record sort of,
Mm-hmm. Because
imbalance,
they've moved druids away
it's
from
up
the
there.
beast synergies and more towards the armor up
Armor,
and taunt sit parts, which is
armor taunt.
horrible.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh god. And some of them go together, right? Like
Yeah.
Ironwood Golem.
Oh,
It's
yep.
not only just overstated taunt, it's also armor as well. And
Synergy,
then
yeah.
you have like armor synergizing with initiative, with the spell stone. It's like, come on, dude.
And then you have branching paths, which can switch over to healing and armor if you like really need the armor, but is otherwise a normally good card for other purposes. It's just like it's a horrible,
Yeah.
horrible place to be.
Yep. So, anyways, that's sort of where we're at now. And I think the statement you made earlier on is also correct. Like, I had fun playing, it wasn't just steed after steed after steed, which is really, really unfun, right?
Mhm.
And I will say, even with UI, like, is UI fun? It's not fun, but at least you get a few more turns in,
Yeah. Like UI is insanely overpowered, except
Yes.
it's beatable because it's 10 mana. Any card that's 10 mana is beatable. Remember when all the power levels were a lot lower, and then all mages got 2 Firelance portals every turn, like every run? That was beatable. Like I didn't mind the Firelance portal meta as much as everyone else did, because I'm like, I know this mage has a turn 7 Firelance portal. I'm gonna make it irrelevant and win on turn 8.
Right.
And then ta-da, I get good runs.
I mean, the problem is, like, the druid has also very small initiative, right? And it has spreading plague, which just
spreading plague is really the problem.
Please,
if they didn't have spreading plague, I don't think the UI would be. You just need a faster deck, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be that much faster. It's a turn 10 card, and on turn 10, it will remove one of your mid-sized minions and gain 5 armor, which is decent for defense, but it doesn't like recover the druid fully or anything like that.
No, but spreading plague is really sort of the it's the one card that makes UI like at the insane level, right? Like, it gets you there because for 6 mana, lots of times you deal at least 1 damage to everything, and you heal for like 30 health at like something crazy like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
let me ask you a question then. So what do you do? Let's say it seems like we were on this hunter v druid matchup, but I think it's less about druid than it is about hunter. What I want to focus on with the rest of the discussion is let's talk about hunter, because it is the worst class, or it was the worst class. It's probably still the worst class. We're in a meta that we keep telling people, right? Like, you can't only care about curve and get your 1-drops and 2-drops. That was the last discussion. The discussion before that was how much hunter was not a class, and paladins or rogues are the classes. And generally, there's a lot of tools right now to deal with aggro, and aggro just generally doesn't work as well anymore. Druid or no druid, right? And so you kind of have to select hunter, let's say, or you want to play hunter. What do you do? The win rate's not that bad. The win rate's like 48%.
The win rate's not that bad, right? I will say what you want to do, and I think this is the most important thing for any sort of class that somewhat relies on tempo now, right? It hasn't changed from before, but I definitely want to stress this. You need good 3-drops. Like you need the power 3s. And I like just playing, like, the difference between sort of the classes that have or on turn 3 are able to drop a power card, and they're like the classes that can't drop, or like, the opponent that can't drop. It's such a huge head start, right? Because the 2-drops are pretty pathetic nowadays, especially the neutral ones, right? Yep. Neutral, there just isn't anything there.
And there's no 2-drops for hunters anymore except Crackling Razor Maul, which is at the very top bucket. So you're going to have to pay for that.
Right.
Well, not to say that's the wrong pick, because that's a hugely powerful card, but you just know that you're going to have to pay for that card.
Yeah. So you need really, really good 3-drops, and you need a lot of them, because you need to ensure that you hit that, hit that good 3-drop. 2s, I don't reach for 2s, or and I'll just take the good ones as they come, right? And there's like a couple of 2-drops that that aren't like super over bucketed. I forget which ones, but like are kind of acceptable, right? And like you said before, I would draft good ones.
So bad 2-drops are the ones that are not over bucketed.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, and also something like Scavenging Hyena is acceptable, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in a bucket
It's
in
in a pretty
which
low bucket.
it's in a pretty low bucket, and it's also an upside pick, right?
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine picking upside picks. So it might not be a two, but sometimes you're able to drop it as a two, and sometimes when I have like Mastiff plus Scavenging Hyena,
Yep.
right? That's like really good. I had that go off a few times. So I think that's really key. Like you don't have to be the fastest hunter or like the hunter of yesteryears, right? You
Mm-hmm.
just have to be the hunter that like it's like, man, your turn three, you aimed for it to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit more powerful than your opponents on average. Turn four, same thing. Turn five, you probably don't want like a five drop all the time. You want like a three plus like a freezing trap, right? I would say that's more preferable than to like just one big drop.
Why is
Um,
that?
because when you get there, you don't really want to play vanilla, I would say. You want to start, eking out small advantages. If you just drop one big thing, a lot of classes can get like either get rid of it or plan around it, right? Even if they can't get rid of it right away, it's much easier to plan around. Like I know Pit Fighter is not in here, but I'm just going to use it like a Pit Fighter like minion on turn five. And I think that as a hunter, you can't really afford to just play that straight up.
Mm.
You do get offered some better cards, I'm guessing, from the patch. I haven't really looked into it, but you're still not good enough to sort of play vanilla, right? You have to play just tempo out a little bit more or play a little bit more tricky, like force your opponents to do things that they're not as comfortable with. And every single arena player is very comfortable playing around one big minion a turn, right? Like that is sort of like arena 101. Prepare for the spider tank, prepare for the yeti, prepare for the pit fighter. And I would say on turn five, like that's when you want to get a little bit more complex and have a little bit of flexibility there. So,
Okay, I'm gonna come with the opposite perspective and
oh,
say
okay.
that it depends on what cards you have in your hand, because what you need to
Well,
do
I
as
mean,
the
it always does.
hunter, sure, but I mean what you need to, and what I'm saying is, if you have the cards in your hand, you just do the exact opposite of that. You want to put down something mid-size. I think I agree with you in that you never want to put out something giant. That's always been true for hunter, right? You never put down like an 8/8
hmm
for 8 or for 7 even. Like, yeah, it could give your opponents trouble, but they play two small taunts and you're screwed, and your opponent always has two small taunts. But if you have a hunting mastiff, if you have an unleash the hounds, if you have an explosive shot, like when you have the things that it takes, you want to bait your opponents into doing the things that they think will screw you. Because what's good about a medium-sized minion is your opponent can use a large clear on it, but you don't care if it does, right? Like, assuming you're out on the board, which you should be anyway, if your opponent does a large removal on your 5 mana card, you get additional face damage. You've won that exchange, even if they use the same amount of mana or even 1 or 2 mana less. That's not what you care about. On the other
Yep.
hand, so and your opponent knows this. They know they're losing whenever they go 1 for 1 for you, even if they've taunted up or they've just like flat out removed your minion. So what they want to do is play a taunt and another minion, and then somehow eke out some advantage on the kills in later turns, or to just damage your mid-sized minion to do a large board clear on a future turn. That's how they win. That's their win condition, or like not win condition. That's their stabilizing condition, right? You're the hunter. You're the one putting on the pressure. You're looking for ways that your opponent can stabilize, and you want to punish them for trying to stabilize. So every single time you can bait your opponent into playing into a card that you have in your hand, you need to take that, because, like Merp said, you can't play straight up. You don't win when
No.
you play straight up. This is not GVG. It just doesn't work. And as we talked about in the last Lightforge, you can't have 1 drops and 2 drops without suffering a lot on the removal part. And what happens when you suffer on the removal part? Your 1s and 2 drops don't get through taunts and you're screwed. So suffering too much on the removal part is not an option for a deck in the Witchwood meta, at least for a successful deck in 10.4. So without that, you may have a slightly better curve than another class, but overall, as the hunter, you should not expect a good curve. You don't have good 1-drops anymore. You only have one good 2-drop left, and it's in your top bucket. So you'll sometimes pick it, but it's not like you're getting a whole lot of them to play. You should still try to get a curve, obviously, because your whole plan, involves some kind of a curve. But don't expect to be the person on the board like all the time. You're going to be on the board sometimes. You're going to not be on the board sometimes. But what you need to do is, even if you're not on the board, you're not going to be off the board forever.
Yeah.
Because that's how these metas work now. At some point, you're going to flip the board and be on the board for a turn or two or whatever. And that's the turn in which you have to bait your opponent into doing something that if they knew what card you have in your hand, they would not do. And you do that by playing seemingly dumbly, but with a plan. So when you're playing, I like to think of things this way. It's like, what would I play that would be a dumb move if I did not have this game-flipping card or game-winning card in my hand? And that is my number one option. My number two option is my normally best play. I prefer to bait my opponents than to make the best play, even on an empty board. Because by making the best play, you're trying to play straight up with your opponents. And you're a hunter, you're weaker. So you're going to lose more often than you're going to win.
I totally understand what you're saying. It's just the way you're phrasing is kind of funny. It's like, there's the best play.
It's like Skolansky's theory of poker. The best play is literally the play that if your opponents knew what cards you actually had, they would not. You have caused them to make a mistake in the way that they played. That's always your best play. Is the one that makes your opponent do the thing that is dumb, right? So it's okay for you to be a little dumb if you make your opponents a lot dumb. And if you're playing the worst class in the game, whose prime archetype you can't even build anymore, right? Try having all the 1-drops and 2-drops to end your curve on 4. If you pull off the deck, you won't get that many wins. You could easily pull off the deck, I think, even in today's drafting style. Just keep drafting low. You'll get the deck. You won't get the wins attached to it, druid or no druid. I mean, you may get a decent amount of wins. I'm not saying that kind of deck can't go 7, but it's not going 12. So if you want a successful hunter deck, build a little more aggressively than a typical deck. But the most important part is when you have these cards, these flipping kind of cards, you have to use it. And you have to use it well. Your crushing walls, your explosive shot, such a huge one. I love explosive shot. Your hunting mastiffs, your unleash the hounds. And one thing to notice is that all of these cards that I mentioned, besides crushing walls, are in the second highest bracket. And they are competing with some cards that you could do without. So I like to think of Hunter as being in one of two archetypes that split among this the second bucket of cards, which you're going to see a lot of because of the class balance and micro adjust update. And here's the bucket of Hunter cards. I'll give you the neutral cards first. Neutral cards are Fireplume Phoenix, Hildnir Frostrider, Stoneskin Basilisk, Furious Et, and Stonehill Defender. Right off the bat, you know that these are not half of these are you would never even take as a hunter, right? The neutral cards.
Yeah.
So you're gonna take the hunter cards for the most part. These are not Basilisk is good and all, but hunter's probably one of the worst places for it because it doesn't deal face damage when you want it to, right? Fireplume Phoenix is great, of course, but you can't use the elementalness. Hildnir Frostrider, I think, is always over bucketed in this bucket, but whatever. If you're another class, not hitting face for one turn, if you have something on the board, is not the biggest deal to preserve the flexibility. But for Hunter, it's huge, right? These are all non-Hunter-y cards. They're not horrible in Hunter, but you don't want them. So what do you have? You have the extremely over-bucketed Wing Blast, which I just think it's so over-bucketed in this bucket, you would never pick it. It would almost never be the right choice.
I agree. I was up against it a few times on Friday. I was like, it's just not the pick, It's a fine card, but it's not that good.
So what's in the second bucket, right? Hunting Mastiff, as we talked about, is in the second bucket. That is an insanely flexible card that's also a game-flipping card. Unleash the Hounds is in there. Similar. I think Hunting Mastiff is better than Unleash the Hounds because you can use it proactively. But similar idea. Deadly Shot, if you're a little more on the aggressive side. Explosive Shot, if you're a little more on the defensive side. And then you have Snake Trap, Venom Strike Trap, which are interesting because they are very powerful secrets. And I think they do belong in this bucket. And they're 2-drops effectively because they do give you tempo at some point, right? And your opponent have to remove you on the board. You're a hunter. So they do get played. They do get triggered at some point. But it is interesting because this kind of takes you down a little bit of a different path, right? They synergize very well with your Spellstone, which is a top bucket card, and then finally you have Candle Shot, which is just an overall very useful hunter 1-drop card. So if you go towards the like Explosive Shot, Hunting Mastiff, Unleash the Hound side, those are game flipping. Like, my opponent does something, I have this card, they think, oh, if he has this card, I lose the game. But I do have that card, so I set them up in a way, whatever, and I can win. If you take those kinds of cards, what you want to do is to have the rest of your cards just be a normal mid-rangey curve. And you use those kinds of cards. They're some of the best game flipping cards in the entire game. And again, this isn't even your top bucket. Right? You're still going to get your flanking strikes. You're still going to get your Savannah Hymens, your Eaglehorn Bows, right? Your Crushing Walls, your Houndmaster, whatever you think the best cards are. That's not here. And the cards below here, no one thinks they're the best cards. Like, it's a really steep drop-off after this, except Gladiator's Longbow, but I think we like it better than most people. Anyway, so that's what I call the hunter style. That is the late game mid-range hunter, where you're playing the hunter as if it's not a hunter, and when you have a little bit more mana to work with, you start chipping away, and then your opponent starts realizing they're on the clock, and then they get a little desperate because anytime they leave your board on for 1 turn, you can swing 10 damage to your opponent's face and then end it very quickly. So that's how your hero power kind of gets used, as more of a threat than a reality. And you get your value by playing that, by making good use of all these cards that I just mentioned. Again, Explosive Shot, Unleash the Hounds, Hunting Mastiff. Those would be your core game flipping cards. On the other hand, you can play the more fast hunter, in which you want to supplement your 2-drops, because again, we talked about this before. You can't have 1-drops and 2-drops and enough cards to exist. But secrets kind of vaguely get around that, because you have your Spellstone, your Snake Trap, your Venom Strike Trap, and then you have 2-drops, and you have an insane synergy card.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Lesser Emerald Spellstone is not in this bucket is really, really huge. And the fact that these cards will trigger and give you tempo like at the right pace is also very huge. So you don't just like die before you Spellstone.
Yep. I think that's a good analysis. And like, with the way that we draft right now, any meta analysis or any deep dive into a class will involve this, right? Like a very careful sort of combing through of the bucket system and seeing like, how does this class work in drafting? So once again, if you guys want to figure out Hunter a little bit more, or if you guys just want to figure out another class, whether you are playing that class or playing against that class, you need to go and look at the latest spreadsheet, right? And the latest spreadsheet might not even be the most accurate
but
one.
This one is, because when they like updated the micro adjust, they didn't change the buckets. So
right. But this is something that you guys need to keep up with all the time now.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those things, and some of the so the reason I start off with this like late mid-range hunter is because it's really been the hunter that works best through a couple of metas now, and it's kind of unfortunate for hunter, but that's where the reality is. And once the bucketing system came in, it became even more of a thing, because the lower buckets have both Grievous Bite and Multi-Shot. That's in like the second to last bucket. And those are pretty decent control cards. They're low because most hunters try to play aggressive, and they're not the best aggressive cards. But you get a lot of value with this. Whereas if you try to play aggressive, that's where everyone else is playing, and that's where like this is also where Raptor Hatchling is. And Raptor Hatchling is like a halfway decent aggressive card. You can't get as much value from it. And the one more thing about what Merps was talking about the very valuable 3-drops, no matter which way you play, very valuable 3-drops are key to Hunter, because you do need to establish your board, whether it is as an anchor for a mid-range game or as your push for your slightly more aggressive game. And the thing to add to that is that Hunters used to have a lot of 3-drops that come about, and they're very powerful. In the old system, you would be guaranteed some good 3-drops. In the new system, you are not guaranteed the good 3-drops. Not that you're not guaranteed that they will appear, but that you're not guaranteed that you'll want to take them. Animal Companions in the number 1 bucket. It's a great card. It's not a
I
number
never pick
one
animal.
bucket.
Yeah,
You
I
just you
never
can't
pick
take
that card.
it. It's got such an RNG element to it. It's going to favor like bad players to good players, and it's just going to end up being bucketed a bit higher. Bear Shark is in the third bucket, which is okay for Bear Shark. I'm not saying you never take Bear Shark in this bucket, but this is the Dark Iron Dwarf bucket. Like you're getting what you pay for with Bear Shark. It's not a good deal. It's just what it is. So the one card you want to take every single time it shows up, besides the other like underbucketed neutral cards that are 3-drops, is Duskhaven Hunter. That's with Cave Hydra in the Yeti bucket, and it is much better than a Yeti. That's the new card. It's slightly underbucketed and misbucketed. And it is a 2/5 stealth or a 5/2 stealth, depending on what turn you play it. And I've had very good experiences with it, and you just don't have other 3-drops. So I know, especially if you're a veteran player, you'll think that Hunter has a lot of 3-drops. They don't anymore, and the ones that they do, you can't really like pick them in a very good way. Like your neutrals are really what you're looking for. So when you're drafting Hunter, don't think like, oh, I got my 3-drops. Like take the neutral ones.
Yep. Cool. All right. Sounds good. And I will say that I typically will not, other than what was it, the Duskhaven, right? Other than that card and Eaglehorn Bow, which
auto pick,
right? Other than those 2 3-drops, I would say I don't. Yeah, like Bear Shark.
And Eaglehorn Bow is your auto pick 3-drop still in the very top bucket, but it's that good.
Just because it is that good. Mm-hmm. But other than that, yeah, I want I want the Hildnir Frost Riders. Right.
No, well, maybe not in that bucket, but yeah, you want.
Yeah, maybe not in that bucket, but like that is one in which you don't love it in that bucket, but man, that is like something that you do want, right? Because if you're looking at Hunter class cards, a lot of the times, like you want the other cards, right? Like with the 3s, you're just going to take probably like the bow, and you're not taking Animal Companion, so probably just the bow. Is there any other card? Not remembering. Anyways,
what for 3s?
Not
really. Just the top bucket for Hunter is really interesting. It's just got a lot of overpowered cards that could really like supplement whatever you want to do, whether it's Clacker and Razor Maul for a fast beast based thing, or like Kill Command for reach based thing. Savannah Hymene's always good. Your Spellstone's there.
I just can't believe the Animal Companion is there. Yeah, it's very weird.
It needs to be top the bucket.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's a pretty good breakdown of the Hunter buckets.
Yeah. Do we have a question from the GOAT?
That is a good question. And the answer to that is no.
Okay, well, we don't need a question from the GOAT for this week. Well, we'll definitely get one next week. But I do want to thank our patrons and give a shout out. Our top patrons in May: 4P, Afro Ninja TB, Ingo, Keep It In Loopy, Talons, Arubi, Eric L, Kid Gloves, RV Night Train, and Shep X13. Thank you guys so much for supporting Lightforge.
Thank you. Yeah.
I know we missed the shout out last month. Things were kind of all in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing about Hunter. I guess we'll end it on a very quick card, good, bad. This is something that will lower Hunter's win rates, at least against. I see it played against me all the time, so it must work against some bad players. But it is Explosive Trap and Wandering Monster. And I'm not saying those are bad cards necessarily. We rate them a 99 and an 85. They should definitely get played. But the opponent kind of sets up something and then just refuses to play minions until they get triggered. And they just try to hero power you down from 30 health. And I just want to remind people, that's a very dangerous game to play. Try not to rely your strategy on it. And if you're ever faced against it, just keep playing minions. Win the board. Yeah. Once you win the board, you swing to the Hunter's face. The Hunter can't recover after that. Like, the Hunter's not going to actually hero power you down.
Yeah. And that's, the strategy that people take with Explosive Trap. Wandering Monster, I think people fall less into a trap with that, right? Mm-hmm. You see people go with the Explosive Trap and they don't see it doesn't work. They're like, I'm going to keep on going with it, right? They'll like do tracking and then hero power to try to keep that going,
like
to prevent
on turn 7 and not use the rest of the mana.
Right. Wandering monster, I think it's less of a trap for
Mm.
people. Haha.
But yeah,
But
just always
yeah,
know you don't have to play into it. You don't have to attack. Just like you're
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Right. And we demonstrated it on stream quite a bit. So if you're playing against explosive trap, just know that it's a good opportunity if they're slowing down. Good opportunity for you to just keep on building,
Yeah.
right? Put down your 4/4s, your 5/5s, etc.
Even if you put down stuff that's like 3/2s, just whenever they play a minion, trade your minions in.
Yep.
Like you don't have to stop playing just because the stuff you're playing only has 2 health. Keep playing them.
Right. So I think that that's a good lesson. And Wandering Monster is one of those things in which you should expect Wandering Monster a decent amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see it quite often, and people pick it quite often. And a lot of people confidently play on turn 2, right? You put down like a 2/3, they're just like, oh, dude, my 3-drop is going to dominate that 2/3. And yeah, it will. Like on average, it definitely will. So just don't attack in, right? That's the thing with these face traps. Like, if you give them the credit on that turn, you're giving them the 2-mana consecration. You're giving them, a 2-mana 3-drop with initiative,
Yeah.
right?
So unless you are so aggro that you're gonna run
Yeah.
out of cards if you play your normal game without attacking their face, and you need to do it, like people think that explosive trap and stuff like may punish people who are like playing normally and allow the hunter to be more aggressive, but they're aggro stoppers. They force
Yeah.
you to not attack the hunter's face and give the hunter time to do things. But these days, I don't know, you can probably do more things in the late game than a hunter, so like unless your deck is really geared in that way, and then you're like, fine, I'll lose my raptor as long as I keep getting to go, right? Like I'll give
I know,
credit
yeah.
to their 2-drop. Don't do it otherwise. Okay.
All right.
So one of the things we're doing now for Card Good Bad is we're having a discussion on the next Card Good Bad on our subreddit at which is Reddit /r/Grinning Goat. It's the Grinning Goat subreddit, and there will be a Card Good Bad thread up there starting later on Sunday, maybe on Monday it'll come up. And for an entire week, you can discuss things about the card and what experiences you've been having with it, and any questions that you may ask about how to play it, so that we can better address the discussions about Card Good Bad. Next week's Card Good Bad is going to be what, Merps?
Next week's Card Good Bad is going to be Ratcatcher.
Ratcatcher. Great.
Yes.
So that's the Warlock card that rushes and eats your minions and takes its stats. So definitely, this was requested by a supporter. So just feel free to join the discussion on our subreddit.
Yep. All right. Thank you, guys. A lot of things that we talked about this week. I thought we got through it in an efficient amount of time.
Yeah. That's it from us this week. Until good luck on our hunter run coming up. Hopefully the micro adjust work. That's what we did, right? We purposefully delayed it to this week so we could have this class balance thing kick in.
Yep.
And it paid off as we go in 03. Until next week, this is Adwikta.
This is Merps. Good luck in Arena.
Bye.